My name is Attorney Claire Romer, and this case destroyed everything I believed about justice. For years, I defended the system. I trusted the science. I trusted the labs. I trusted DNA. And then one mistake set a killer free. She inhales deeply, steady but shaken. I still remember the night the call came in. A man named Ellis Ward had been convicted of a brutal assault. It was my first major appeal case, and I pushed the court to test new DNA found under the victim's nails. When the results came back, everyone celebrated. The DNA didn't match Ellis. After 7 years behind bars, he walked out a free man. Cameras followed him, reporters cheered, and I believed I had done something good. Her tone drops, dark, heavy, unbearable. But the night Ellis walked free, someone watched him. Someone who knew the truth. And 2 weeks later, the real killer returned. The new crime scene was a mirror of the original, same brutality, same signature. But this time, the killer left something behind. Not a note, not a symbol. But a message clasped inside the victim's hand. A folded piece of orange synthetic fabric, edges burned, scent of industrial chemicals still clinging to it. A clue, a warning. That orange fabric changed everything, Claire says. It wasn't part of the first case. It didn't belong to Ellis. It was new and meant for us. Then came the revelation that still haunts her. A lab technician whispered, trembling, "Claire, the DNA is the same. The same profile we used to free Ellis." Everything froze. "That was impossible," Claire murmurs. "We used that DNA to prove his innocence, but now the same DNA appeared at a new crime scene? Science doesn't contradict itself. People do." Investigators debated contamination, mistakes, machine errors, but Claire saw something that everyone else missed. The DNA wasn't just matching, it was identical. Perfectly identical, too perfect. When she reviewed the raw electrophoregram files, her stomach dropped. "This profile, it's a copy. A cloned DNA profile, not natural, not random, not accidental. Someone had manufactured Ellis Ward's DNA and placed it inside both crime scenes, once to convict him, once to punish her for freeing him. Someone inside the system. Someone with access to lab materials, DNA libraries, and evidence rooms. Someone who walked those halls every single day. That was the moment," Claire says, "when everything I trusted began to crack." The lights flicker in her office as she sits alone, surrounded by identical DNA charts, the orange thread under a glass slide, and 2 case files that should never have connected. She slowly realizes what she's truly facing. Not a mistake, not a coincidence. A design. And the person behind that design, she whispers, had been watching me from the beginning. She closes the file, looks up at the lens, and says, "If you're following this case with me, subscribe now. Because what comes next will change everything you think you know about justice." "I didn't sleep for 3 days after the second crime scene," Claire continues, her voice low and controlled. "Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the orange thread, not the victim, not the brutality, just that thread. Because I knew whoever placed it there wanted me to see it, wanted me to follow it." The police assumed the 2 cases were connected by coincidence. Claire didn't believe in coincidence. Not when the same DNA showed up twice. Not when the killer's method was identical. Not when the timing aligned with Ellis Ward's release. Someone planned this. Someone engineered a sequence. Someone was rewriting the case from the inside. Claire drove to the evidence lab, Building C of the Metro Forensics Complex. A gray, windowless structure that always felt too quiet, too cold, too predictable. It was designed to protect the integrity of evidence. Ironically, it was the perfect place to destroy it. She met with Dr. Lior Kane, the lab director. He was tall, polished, overly professional, the kind of man who corrected people for calling him doctor instead of director. His eyes always looked slightly amused, as if he found the world predictable and slightly beneath him. When Claire showed him the matching DNA, he didn't look surprised. That was the first red flag. "That's statistically unlikely," he said, adjusting his glasses. "But not impossible, perhaps a coincidental match. Or a partial misread." "No," she replied, her patience thinning. "I want the raw data, not the summary, not the printout, the source files." Kane hesitated. That was the second red flag, but he eventually gave in. Claire left the lab with a flash drive containing the raw electrophoregram peaks. She didn't go home. Instead, she sat in her car in the lab parking lot with her laptop, combing through thousands of data points. And there, she found it again, repeated peak patterns, identical baseline noise signatures, and even the same run errors. Something no natural DNA sample would ever produce twice. It wasn't just a copy. It was a clone. A manufactured match. She whispered to herself, someone built this profile. She didn't know how, she didn't know why, but she was staring at man-made DNA fingerprints. Hours later, she brought the data to the lead detective, Mark Arlo. He was a seasoned investigator, carrying 20 years of exhaustion in his eyes. When Claire told him she suspected manipulation inside the lab, he didn't react with disbelief. Instead, he sighed as if he expected it. Claire, we've had an internal integrity complaint filed against the lab 3 months ago, he confessed. Anonymous. Claimed someone was tampering with evidence but didn't specify who. We dismissed it because we couldn't trace it. And you didn't tell me? She asked. It wasn't relevant until now. Claire clenched her jaw. It was relevant. It was always relevant. And then the case shifted again. Detective Arlo slid a folder across the table. Inside was a photo of a maintenance log from the evidence locker. A single entry stood out. An after-hours access badge swiped the night before Ellis Ward's exoneration hearing. The badge number belonged to an employee who had been on medical leave at that time, and beneath the badge number, the signature. Claire stared at the name. Who is this? Arlo exhaled slowly. We can't find him. The lab says he worked there for 8 years, but the payroll shows no record. HR says the file is archived. The badge was activated during a system update 3 months ago. A ghost employee, a fabricated identity. Someone embedded in the lab long before Ellis Ward's appeal. Claire felt the air shift inside her lungs. This wasn't just tampering, it was infiltration. Arlo, someone built themselves into the system, she said. Someone who knew how to hide inside the records. Someone who had access to DNA libraries, evidence lockers, and case files. Someone who could create a perfect DNA match and plant it wherever they wanted. Arlo nodded grimly. And they used Ellis Ward as their experiment. Claire continued flipping through the file, and then she found the part that made her hand tremble. The ghost employee's last recorded task was handling the original assault evidence 7 hours before Claire requested the appeal DNA test. 7 hours, and the camera for that wing, offline for maintenance, no footage. Who approved the maintenance? Claire asked. Arlo tapped the page. Dr. Lior Kane. Her chest tightened. The man who hesitated, the man who wasn't surprised. The man who always seemed amused. Claire closed the file and whispered, he knew. But before she could speak further, her phone vibrated. A new message. No number, no sender, just one sentence. Stop digging. Her breathing slowed. She showed it to Arlo. He stared at it for a long time before saying, they're watching you. Claire looked out the window. The parking lot was empty. The street was empty. The lab building stood in the distance like a silent, concrete sentinel. It felt like the walls were leaning in, watching, listening. But the worst part wasn't the message. It was the attached image. A picture of Claire, taken from behind a few hours earlier, sitting in her car in the lab parking lot, analyzing the DNA files on her laptop. Someone was close enough to photograph her, close enough to breathe the same air, and now they knew she was onto them. That was the moment, Claire says, voice steady but dark, when I realized this wasn't just a case, it was a trap. And someone inside the lab had been waiting for me to step into it. I should have walked away, Claire begins, voice steady but hollow. Every instinct told me to step back, to hand the investigation to someone else, to go home and forget I ever saw that cloned DNA. But when someone sends you your own photograph and tells you to stop digging, that's when you know you're digging in the right place. That night, Claire didn't go home. She drove to a small 24-hour diner off Highway 17. It was half empty, fluorescent lights buzzing, walls washed in a dull yellow glow. She slid into a corner booth facing the entrance, habit of someone who can't trust what's behind her. Her laptop open, files scattered, eyes bloodshot. She stared at the picture sent to her phone. The angle was too close. The timestamp was exactly 4:18 p.m., the moment she discovered the duplicated allele peaks. Whoever sent it had been right there, close enough to reach her car. Close enough to open the passenger door if they wanted. The waitress brought coffee. Claire barely tasted it. Her brain kept replaying the second crime scene, the orange thread, the identical DNA, the ghost employee, the lab director's hesitation. The pieces didn't fit until she noticed something she overlooked earlier: a watermark. At the bottom of the anonymous message's attached image, an almost invisible string of numbers. She zoomed in. It wasn't random. It was an EXIF code, metadata that should have been stripped from any anonymous image. But whoever sent it didn't realize Claire was trained to look for details no one else sees. She traced the device signature. It belonged to a camera model used exclusively by personnel in restricted forensic environments. Evidence documentation cameras. The kind only labs like Metro Forensics possessed. Claire's pulse quickened. Someone inside the lab took that photo. Not a stranger, not a random stalker, someone with clearance. She pulled up the staff list again, 24 names. Only 6 had access to the specialized cameras. 2 were out of state. 1 was on maternity leave. 1 had retired last month. That left 2 people, Dr. Leor Kane and a technician named Mara Holt. Claire had seen Mara only once, the day after Ellis Ward was freed. A quiet woman with sharp features, pale eyes, and gloves always pulled a little too high on her wrists. She barely spoke. She moved like a shadow. Claire remembered her because when she walked past, she carried a faint smell, industrial degreaser, the kind used to wipe down metal surfaces. The same scent Claire detected on the orange thread from the second crime scene. She froze. It was her, she whispered to herself. But then doubt crept in. No, it couldn't be that simple. The ghost employee, the badge access, the DNA clone. That required system-level manipulation. That required authority. That required someone like Kane, yet someone like Kane wouldn't take photos himself. Someone like Kane would use a proxy, a loyal technician. Someone who followed orders without question. Her thoughts spiraled as her phone vibrated again. Another message, this time a video. Claire clicked it with trembling fingers. The footage opened to a dark hallway, sterile, metallic, the kind found in evidence archives. The timestamp was 2 days before the second murder. The video showed a person in a lab coat, their face blurred, walking into a restricted DNA storage room. They removed a sealed vial. The angle shifted. Whoever filmed it was hiding behind shelving, watching secretly. Then the shadowed person left. The camera panned to the vial left behind on a table. On its label, Case 8417 billion. Ward Ellis control sample, the cloned DNA, but the message wasn't finished. A line of text appeared over the video. This wasn't a mistake. Claire felt her stomach twist. Someone inside the lab was trying to warn her. Someone who knew everything, someone who couldn't speak openly. She checked the EXIF signature again. Same source as the last image. Same camera ID range. The insider sending warnings was also close enough to threaten her. Her pulse doubled. If the same person was warning and threatening her, what did that mean? Were there 2 insiders, or was one person playing both sides? Before she could process it, her phone buzzed again with a new alert, this time from Detective Arlo. Claire, where are you? Call me now. She dialed instantly. Arlo answered on the first ring. Claire, listen carefully. We went back to check the ghost employee's badge records. We found something. He wasn't using an alias. He was using a real identity. Someone who existed. Someone who worked in the lab years ago. Someone who disappeared in 2016 under suspicious circumstances. The badge was reactivated recently. Claire felt her throat tighten. What are you saying? Arlo paused, voice dropping. Claire, the badge belongs to Mara Holt's brother. The diner suddenly felt too quiet, the air too heavy. Her brother, Claire whispered. He vanished 9 years ago. His last known location was the Metro Forensics basement. The night he disappeared, the cameras were offline. His sister Mara was the last person to see him. Claire's mind raced. Mara Holt, the silent technician. The woman who moved like a shadow. The woman who smelled of industrial degreaser. The woman whose gloved hands trembled when she handled evidence. Arlo continued, we also found incident reports. Complaints that he suspected evidence manipulation back in 2016. He tried to report it. He disappeared before he could. Claire gripped the table. So you're saying? I'm saying the person manipulating DNA didn't start now. They've been at this for years, and Mara Holt might not be covering for the killer, she might be covering for what happened to her brother. A chill shot through Claire. So who sent the warning video? She asked. Arlo took a long breath. Claire, someone hacked into the evidence server 30 minutes ago. The IP address shows it came from the building you're sitting across from right now. Claire lifted her eyes slowly. Through the diner window across the highway, the Metro Forensics building stared back at her like a dark, silent monolith. Its top floor lights were on, one room burning white. A figure stood at the window, watching her, not moving. Not blinking, Claire's voice dropped to a whisper. He's not done. Arlo replied, no, Claire, he's just getting started. Claire didn't blink. She didn't move. She just stared at the silhouette standing in the forensic building's top floor window, a figure outlined by cold fluorescent light, completely still like a mannequin placed there on purpose. The diner's buzzing lights seemed to fade into nothing as her pulse rose slowly, steadily, painfully. That's him, she whispered, though she didn't know who him was. A shadow, a ghost employee, the killer who cloned DNA. The insider who filmed the warning video, or was it all the same person? Her phone remained pressed to her ear. Arlo's voice crackled urgently. Claire, you need to get out of there now. But she didn't, not yet. Something about the figure felt deliberate, not threatening, not rushed, but calculated. Like he wanted her to know he was watching. Like he wanted her to see the vantage point he had over her life, over her investigation, over her fear. Claire took a slow breath, forcing her voice steady. Arlo, I think he's signaling me. What do you mean? He's not hiding, he wants to be seen. Arlo muttered a curse. Claire, people who want to be seen are never alone. If he's in that window, someone else is already moving around you. A cold prickling ran down her neck. Claire lowered her eyes to the diner's reflection in the window. For a moment she saw her own face, and behind it the faint outline of someone moving across the parking lot, a dark shape. Slow, controlled, watching, not approaching, just observing. Her chest clenched. Arlo, someone's outside. Do not leave the diner, do you hear me? Stay in public view, I'm sending officers. No, she said, surprising herself. He wants me to run, he wants a reaction. Because running would prove she was scared. And fear meant vulnerability. Claire straightened her back, eyes still fixed on that single figure in the forensic building window. Arlo, she whispered, what else did you find about Mara Holt? Arlo hesitated. Her record is clean. Too clean, no disciplinary actions, perfect performance, 0 absences, 0 errors, not one misfiled sample in 8 years. Claire, that's not normal. No human being is that consistent. Claire's eyes narrowed. Unless she's trying to stay invisible, Arlo continued. Her brother's disappearance was investigated quietly. The report scratched no cause, no suspects, no forensic review, signed off by one person. Claire's stomach tightened. Kane, yes, Arlo confirmed. All trails point back to him. Claire's gaze lifted again to the window. The figure still hadn't moved, not an inch. It reminded her of Kane, cold, rigid, emotionless. A man who treated evidence the way a surgeon treats organs, carefully, meticulously, but without soul. And then, suddenly, the fluorescent light behind the figure flickered. Once, twice, then blacked out completely. The silhouette vanished. Claire inhaled sharply, gripping her phone tighter. Arlo, the lights just bang. The sound came from the diner's back entrance. Sharp, metallic, not a gunshot, something else, something like a metal door being forced open. Customers turned. The waitress froze, eyes widening. Claire immediately slid out of her booth, keeping low, instincts sharpening. That sound came from the employee-only exit. Arlo's voice nearly shouted through the phone, "Claire. What happened? Someone just..." Before she finished, the diner's old security camera above the cashier counter clicked. Claire's eyes shot upward. It was turning by itself, rotating toward her booth. The same camera model used in the forensic labs. Her breath caught. Whoever was here had hacked into the diner's closed-circuit feed. Her phone buzzed. A new message. No sender, just text. "You're looking in the wrong direction?" Claire's blood turned to ice. She slowly turned, not toward the door, not toward the window, but toward the stainless steel swinging door to the diner's kitchen. A shadow stood behind it, motionless. Watching her through the crack, Claire's voice slid into a whisper. "Arlo, he's inside." Arlo cursed loudly. "Claire, you need to move. Officers are 5 minutes out." 5 minutes is too long. She reached for her bag where she kept a small tactical flashlight and a metal pen she always carried for court, heavy, sharp, more weapon than writing tool. The kitchen door nudged slightly open, a soft creak. The shadow slipped back as if retreating deeper inside. Not attacking, not fleeing, waiting. The waitress whispered shakily, "Ma'am, do you want me to call the manager?" "No," Claire said softly. "Stay where you are." Claire pushed the kitchen door with one hand, flashlight ready, breath steady. The smell hit her first: industrial cleanser, cold metal, and something faintly chemical, the same scent from the orange thread. Her pulse hammered. The walk-in freezer door at the back of the kitchen was cracked open, light spilling out, humming softly, and written on the frosted surface, traced with a gloved finger, were 4 chilling words: "You freed the wrong man." Claire's throat tightened. "Arlo, he's been here. He overheard everything. He's mocking us." Arlo paused. "Claire, that phrase was never made public. Only the lab transcript had it. Only Kane, Mara, and the internal text saw it." Claire stared at the message on the freezer door. Frost glittering, words perfectly curved. No shaking, no haste. The handwriting was precise, surgical, familiar. Suddenly, the freezer light flickered like someone walking past the sensor inside. Claire froze. She wasn't alone. Arlo's voice dropped into a command. "Claire, answer this carefully. Do you hear breathing inside the freezer?" She listened. Yes, slow, calm, purposeful, like someone completely at ease in the cold. Claire swallowed. "Yes, then he's not hiding," Arlo said grimly. "He's waiting for you. That means he wants to talk." Claire's breath trembled. "Why me?" "Because you freed Ellis Ward," Arlo answered. "And because you're the only one who noticed the cloned DNA." Claire stared into the cracked freezer door. The faintest shadow moved inside. A figure, close, very close. She tightened her grip on the metal pen. This wasn't fear anymore. This was confrontation. The killer wasn't running. He was inviting her. And when he finally stepped into the light, she understood one thing instantly. She had seen him before. Not in the lab, not at the crime scenes, but in a place she never thought to question. Her entire world tilted. Her voice barely escaped her throat. "Oh my God, it's you." The moment Claire whispered, "Oh my God, it's you," the figure inside the freezer didn't flinch. Didn't move, didn't even blink. He simply stepped 1 inch closer to the light, a slow glide, precise, intentional. His breath fogged the cold air, rising like smoke around him. And then Claire saw the single detail that made her stomach twist. He was wearing an evidence room lab coat. Not clean, not fresh, not issued recently. Older. Stained faintly along the sleeves like it had been kept somewhere dark for years. Somewhere forgotten. Her mind raced, matching that coat, that posture, that presence, but she still couldn't place his face. Not fully, not yet. Her brain felt like it was trying to push through layers of memory she had ignored for far too long. The man tilted his head slightly, studying her with an eerie calm. He wasn't breathing hard. He wasn't frantic or excited. He was composed, too composed, like he had prepared for this moment with absolute certainty. "Claire," Arlo whispered through the phone still pressed to her ear. "Talk to me. Who is it? What do you see?" But Claire couldn't answer yet. Her voice felt trapped between confusion and horror. The man inside the freezer finally stepped into full view. And here was the part that made Claire feel her knees weaken. He looked almost familiar, not a stranger, not a monster. Someone whose face she might have walked past in the hallways of the courthouse. Someone who could blend into a crowd so invisibly that your mind wouldn't retain him. He had the kind of face you forget quickly. Ordinary, too ordinary. Except for his eyes, cold gray, colorless, hollow. Eyes that looked like they'd seen things no human should see. Eyes that didn't register fear or guilt or hesitation, only calculation. He finally spoke, and his voice was quiet. Steady, as if he'd been waiting years to say his first words to her. "You made the wrong choice, Claire." The sound of her name in his mouth sent a chill through her spine. He said it like he'd rehearsed it. Like he'd whispered it in rooms she never knew he entered, like he knew her far better than she ever knew him. Claire swallowed hard. "Who are you?" she managed. He smirked faintly, not with amusement, more like disappointment. "You should have recognized me the moment you saw the DNA results. You're smarter than this." His tone wasn't mocking. It was instructional, as if he expected her to solve him like a puzzle. Arlo's voice barked through the phone. "Claire, identify him, describe him." Claire whispered, He looks like a lab tech, but not one I know. He's wearing an old forensic coat. He's older than I expected, mid-30s. Maybe 40s? The man's smile widened slightly, as if he heard Arlo's voice through the phone and found it amusing. Then he said something that made every hair on Claire's body rise. 6 years ago, you walked right past me." Her breathing stopped. 6 years ago, that was the year of her first major case. The year she toured the Metro Forensics Lab with a group of interns. The year she handled evidence for her first trial. The year she met No, it couldn't be. Her memory raced through faces she saw during that time. Technicians, assistants, filing clerks. People who scanned badges and held doors open. People who stood quietly behind glass partitions. People who signed evidence release forms without speaking a word. One face flashed in her memory. A man behind the evidence desk who never spoke, who always kept his head slightly bowed, who scanned evidence slips with robotic precision. A man she assumed was shy. A man she forgot the moment she walked away. The killer saw her expression shift, his voice softened. "There it is, I see it in your eyes, you remember." Claire's hand tightened around her pen. "You worked at the lab." "Worked is a generous term," he replied. "I existed there, invisible, forgettable, useful." Claire stepped back a half-inch, her mind spinning. Why target me? Why send me warnings? Why manipulate DNA? Why kill to frame Ellis Ward? The man blinked once slowly. Ellis Ward was irrelevant, a variable. The system needed correction, calibration. And you, he pointed a gloved hand at her, you disrupted the calibration. Claire felt a rush of disgust. You killed people to make a point? No, he said, almost offended. I killed people because they were part of the design. Evidence isn't just collected, it's curated. Curated, the word made Claire's stomach turn. He stepped closer, his breath fogging the cold air around him. And for years, no one questioned a single curated outcome, not one, until you looked too closely, you asked for the raw data. Claire's voice trembled. So you cloned DNA and planted it? I didn't plant anything, he interrupted calmly. I corrected the samples to produce the proper narrative. People died, Claire hissed. He tilted his head. People always die. My job was to ensure the right people were blamed. Then his tone darkened. But your insistence on freeing Ellis Ward created a statistical deviation. Claire's stomach twisted. A deviation. Is that what you call human beings? He shrugged slightly. Human language is insufficient for my work. Arlo's voice shouted through the phone. Claire, get out. Officers are arriving. Do not stay in there alone with him. The man's eyes flicked to the phone. Then he said the words that froze every cell in Claire's body. Claire, you're not alone with me. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Arlo's voice jumped. Claire, what did he just say? But Claire already understood. Slowly, almost painfully slow, she turned her head. And from behind the stacked crates in the kitchen, another figure stepped out. A woman, gloves on. Pale eyes, lab coat, Mara Holt. Claire's breath shattered. I tried to warn you, Mara said quietly, her voice trembling not with fear but with a strange, broken loyalty. But you kept digging, you kept pushing. You forced his hand. Claire's mind spun. You were helping him? Mara's face twisted with something tragic, something fractured. He was the only one who cared what happened to my brother. Claire froze. Your brother. You mean, the man's voice slid in behind her. He found something he shouldn't have, a flaw in my system, so he had to be removed. Mara's eyes filled with tears. He told me the truth. He told me the system was rigged. He told me justice was a story people wanted to believe, not reality. He showed me the files. He showed me how evidence could be rewritten, how guilt could be shaped. Claire whispered, horrified. You let him kill your own brother? Mara shook her head slowly. I didn't let him, I couldn't stop him, and after that, all I could do was make sure no one else interfered. Arlo screamed through the phone, Claire, run, officers are entering the building. The man stepped closer, calm, smiling faintly. No one enters my building without my permission. Claire realized, with a sickening drop in her stomach, he wasn't a lab tech, he wasn't a ghost employee, he wasn't a forgotten worker. He was the architect of the entire forensic system's corruption. And now he was inches away. His final words before stepping fully out of the freezer were soft, chilling, unforgettable. Claire, I didn't come here to kill you. I came to recruit you. Claire didn't move, couldn't move. The freezer hummed behind the killer, frost swirling around his silhouette like a halo of ice. Mara stood to Claire's left, trembling but determined, gripping something inside the pocket of her coat, a metal instrument, long and thin, the kind used for sample extraction. Sharp, precise. Recruit me, Claire forced out, voice barely audible. You think I'd ever be part of this? The killer stepped closer, shoes whispering against the cold metal floor. Claire, you misunderstand me. I don't want your morality, I want your mind. He gestured around the freezer, the kitchen, the entire world outside. Justice is a manufactured outcome. You more than anyone should know that now. Claire swallowed hard. I believe justice is built on truth. And I believe truth is built on design, he answered almost gently. People like you think data speaks for itself, but data doesn't speak, Claire. People interpret it, shape it, present it. Manipulate it. I simply removed the uncertainty. Her voice trembled. You murdered innocent people. He raised an eyebrow. Innocent? The first victim was a statistical burden, a repeat offender. Society would have recycled him eventually. I simply shortened the process. He looked almost annoyed she didn't understand. The second victim, necessary replication, a controlled reenactment to expose your mistake. Claire's breath hitched. You killed them because I freed Ellis Ward. Not because you freed him, he said softly. Because you proved the system fallible, you cracked the illusion, and the illusion must be protected. Mara stepped forward, voice shaking. He's right, Claire, he showed me everything. How evidence is misfiled, how DNA is mishandled, how results can be shaped to fit outcomes. The world doesn't want justice. They want closure. He gives them closure. Claire stared at her, stunned. Mara, you could have exposed him. You could have gone to the authorities. Mara shook her head violently. And who would they believe? A junior tech, a nobody? They would have said I was unstable. Like they said about my brother? Claire whispered, your brother died trying to stop him. Mara's voice cracked. My brother died because he wasn't as smart as you. The killer smiled slightly. Exactly, that's why I need you, Claire. You see patterns, you challenge inconsistencies, you understand narrative. Together we could create a justice system that never misses. Claire felt cold from the inside out. You're insane. No, he replied calmly, I'm inevitable. Before Claire could process his words, her phone buzzed, Arlo's voice roaring. Claire, officers are inside the diner kitchen entrance in 30 seconds. The killer sighed. Predictable, Mara's hand tightened around the metal tool inside her pocket. Should I take her? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Claire's heartbeat spiked. Take me where? The killer stepped closer, lowering his voice. Claire, listen carefully. Those officers, Arlo's men, they're about to arrest the wrong person. Claire stiffened. What? His tone sharpened. You knew too much, you accessed restricted files, you confronted lab personnel. You visited the crime scenes without authorization. You tampered with evidence tonight by entering the freezer. Claire's blood ran cold. He wasn't threatening her. He was outlining a pre-written narrative, a narrative he could make true. Why do you think I kept sending you warnings? He continued. Why do you think I let you get this far? I wanted you to walk into the trap yourself. Claire's voice broke. You want to frame me? His smile finally widened into something real, dark, triumphant. I already did. Claire stepped back instinctively, but Mara blocked her path, expression torn between loyalty and fear. No one will believe your story, the killer said. Not after officers find your fingerprints inside the freezer, your face on security footage, your DNA on the crime scene floor from when you touched that thread. Claire's breath caught. I never touched the diner thread, he corrected. The one I left on your car door, you brushed it aside before you went in. Her stomach dropped. You planned this entire night. Every step, her pulse hammered. Why warn me then? Why send the video? He stepped so close she could feel the icy air from his coat. Because I wanted to see how far you'd get, whether you were worthy, whether you were capable of joining me. His eyes hardened. You disappointed me, Claire's chest tightened. So now what? You kill me? He shook his head. No, I don't need to kill you. I need you alive and frightened. It makes the story cleaner. Then, from the front of the diner, police. Drop your weapons, Boots thundered, doors slammed, flashlights cut through the darkness. The killer turned to Mara. Leave through the back corridor. Phase 2 begins now. Mara nodded quickly and stepped away. Claire lunged forward. Mara, don't. Mara raised the metal tool not to stab Claire, but to block her path, eyes shimmering with guilt. I'm sorry, I really did try to warn you. And she turned and fled through the emergency exit. The killer didn't follow. He stepped back into the freezer's shadow, and then he pressed a button on a small device in his hand. The freezer door slammed shut. Lights flickered. Cold surged. Claire staggered back as the door locked automatically. He turned one last time, face lit by the pale freezer glow. His final words before disappearing into the dark were soft, terrifying, unforgettable. Claire, when they open this door, I will already be gone. But your prince will remain. The freezer lights went out, blackness swallowed her. The sound of boots grew closer. Officers shouting, metal banging. Claire's breath fogged in the freezing air as she realized they would find her. They would see the message on the freezer door, they would see her prince, they would see the killer gone, and they would think she killed him. She set him free, she tampered with evidence. She orchestrated everything. The killer's final masterpiece wasn't murder. It was framing her. The freezer door burst open with a violent clang, a flood of white light exploding into the cramped, cold room. Claire's eyes squeezed shut from the sudden brightness, breath tearing from her lungs as warm air rushed in. Officers stormed inside, guns raised, voices shouting, boots scraping against the metal floor. Hands where we can see them. Step away from the wall. Drop anything in your hands. Claire tried to speak, but her voice came out hoarse. Wait, no, he was here. He locked me in. There's someone else. None of them listened. Hands grabbed her arms, yanking them behind her back. Steel cuffs snapped shut so tight she gasped. She felt humiliation burn through her spine as the officers dragged her out of the freezer, her breath fogging the air, her body shaking violently from cold and panic. Detective Arlo? Claire shouted, desperately scanning the room. Where is Arlo? He rushed in seconds later, face pale, eyes frantic, but when he saw the scene, his expression froze. His gaze fell on the freezer door, on the message written on frost, "You freed the wrong man." His eyes flicked to her fingerprints smeared near the writing, then to the faint traces of her shoe prints in the cold condensation on the floor. Claire, he whispered, hurt, bewildered, conflicted. It's not what you think, she gasped. He wrote that he planted everything, he framed me, Arlo, he was right here. Arlo stepped closer, voice tight. Who, did you see him? Yes, Claire cried. I know who he is, I saw his face, I recognized him. Arlo's jaw clenched. Then why is there no one else here? Officers searched the entire back hall. Emergency exit door shows no signs of opening, no footprints, no disturbance, no second person. Claire's heart slammed against her ribs. He left before you got here. He anticipated this. He planned it. He locked me inside while he ran. Arlo's eyes darkened. Claire, every security camera in the diner was hacked. Footage wiped. Only one person was caught entering the kitchen tonight. Her throat tightened. Me? Yes, Arlo said quietly. You? Her knees buckled, but officers held her upright. Arlo, please, she whispered, you know me. I would never, he swallowed hard, the conflict in his eyes deepening. I know you, but right now the evidence doesn't. That sentence broke something inside her. They led her out of the diner past horrified customers, flashing lights, cameras already gathering outside, journalists whispering rapid speculation. Is that the lawyer who freed the assault suspect? Was she involved in the murders? Did she tamper with evidence? Was she part of a forensic cover-up? Why was she in the kitchen freezer? Her world collapsed in slow motion. Reporters shouted questions, shoving microphones forward. Attorney Romer, are you part of a lab corruption ring? Did you orchestrate the DNA sabotage? Did you work with Ellis Ward? Did you kill the victims yourself? Claire's vision blurred. Her name, her reputation, her life's work twisting into a weapon used against her. Inside the squad car, she pressed her forehead against the cold window, breath shaking. Sobs clawed at her throat, not from fear, but from rage. Rage that the killer was out there, free, watching this unfold. And she knew he was watching, because as the officers closed the car door, she glimpsed something in the distance, a small reflection on a rooftop across the diner. A camera lens. Someone kneeling low, filming her arrest. It was him. He was documenting the final piece of his narrative. Claire mouthed the words silently. I will stop you. The figure on the rooftop dipped the camera slightly as if nodding. The squad car pulled away, lights blurring through her tears. Hours later, Claire sat alone in a gray interrogation room, stark fluorescent lights buzzing, her cuffs removed but red marks circling her wrists. Her hair was still wet from melting freezer frost, her pulse still trembling, her mind spinning. Arlo entered with two other detectives, faces she didn't recognize, hard faces, faces already convinced she was guilty. One detective sat across from her, folding his hands neatly. Miss Romer, we have several questions. Please understand this is your opportunity to tell your side. Claire leaned forward. I told you already. The man behind all of this, he was in the diner. He locked me in that freezer. He planted my prints. The detective's expression remained flat. Miss Romer, the only fingerprints on the freezer door are yours. Because he was wearing gloves. He wrote something down, unimpressed. Convenient, Claire's voice broke. He's been manipulating evidence for years. He used cloned DNA. He framed Ellis Ward. He killed those people to maintain a narrative, and he tried to recruit me. The detective looked at Arlo. Did she say recruit? Arlo nodded silently. The detective continued. Miss Romer, motive is emerging. You freed a guilty man. Public backlash grew. You became defensive. You visited crime scenes without authorization. You accessed restricted files. You confronted lab personnel. Claire slammed her hand on the table. Because I was investigating? Or, the detective said calmly, you were covering up your involvement. Claire shook her head violently. No. Listen to me, he's controlling the system from inside the lab. He's untouchable. He's erasing evidence. He's rewriting crime scene data. The detective raised a hand. Miss Romer, we ran the name you provided, Mara Holt. Claire's heart seized. And she wasn't at the diner tonight. Claire felt the floor tilt. What? One of our units visited her address, the detective continued. She was home, in bed, alibi confirmed by neighbors, no signs of leaving. Claire's voice cracked. That's impossible. She was there. She spoke to me. The detective closed the file slowly. Miss Romer, this is the part where you need to consider that the man you're describing may not exist. Claire stared at him, horror widening her eyes. He exists. He's real. He has a face, a voice. Describe him, the detective said. Precisely. Claire did, meticulously. When she finished, the detective slid a sheet of paper across the table. a sketch. The face looked like the man in the freezer. But the detective said, "That is a composite sketch of a fictional training model used in forensic student exams. A placeholder identity. A face that does not belong to any real employee." Claire stared at the sketch, skin crawling. "What are you saying?" "We're saying your description doesn't match any employee past or present, not even a missing person. You described a generic face, a face designed to be forgettable." Claire's mind cracked, her voice cracked. "That's the point. He made himself invisible, he created anonymity." The detective folded his hands. "Miss Romer, it is beginning to appear you may be experiencing a stress-induced distortion." Claire felt her chest constrict. "You think I made him up?" Arlo looked at her with heartbreak in his eyes. "Claire, help us help you." Her voice was a whisper. "He planned this. He knew you'd say this. He knew you'd think I was unstable. He engineered this moment." Silence. The detective stared. Arlo stared. Claire felt something shatter inside her. She wasn't just trapped, she was being erased. 2 hours later, Claire sat alone in a holding cell, knees pulled to her chest, mind racing. Every breath felt like a countdown. Every sound felt amplified. Then a soft buzzing from the fluorescent lights above. Flicker, flicker, blackout. Claire froze. The hallway outside went silent. Then a screen across the room lit up. A video began playing automatically. Security feed. Recorded earlier that night. The diner, the freezer. Claire, alone, terrified, talking to empty air. No man, no Mara, no second figure, no killer, her voice echoing through the speakers. "Oh my God, it's you. Don't come closer. Why are you doing this? I'll never join you." Claire shook her head violently. "No, no, 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 this isn't real." He was right there. He was in the room. The camera footage showed nothing. Just Claire, talking to shadows, talking to no one. The killer's masterpiece wasn't her arrest. It wasn't framing her. It was making the world believe she was losing her mind. Then the screen glitched. Static. A new message appeared, handwritten in precise lettering. "Claire, you are telling the wrong story." Another line appeared under it. "Let me tell it for you." And the signature, a single symbol Claire had seen only once before. The orange fabric thread, now drawn like a looping insignia, a brand, a calling card, the system's architect signing his work. Claire's pulse stopped. He wasn't done framing her. He was just beginning to narrate her entire life. The screen in my holding cell flickered once, then died. Silence wrapped around me like a vice. The killer hadn't just framed me, he'd erased himself. Every camera, every angle, every piece of truth, and he wanted me to watch it happen. I sat trembling on the cold bench, replaying his words. "Claire, you're telling the wrong story." He wasn't threatening me. He was rewriting me, turning me into the unstable lawyer who freed a guilty man. Turning himself into a ghost no one could trace. The system wasn't broken, it was his design. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. 2 officers appeared at my cell door. "Romer, let's go. Judge wants to see you tonight." No prep. No counsel, no chance to breathe. As they escorted me through the facility, something caught my eye, an evidence file lying open on a counter. My arrest report, my erratic behavior, my hallucinations, my tampered prints. At the bottom was the signature that made my stomach twist. Reviewed by Director L. Kane. My blood went cold. Kane wasn't a forgotten technician. Kane wasn't a ghost employee. Kane was the head of the forensic system. He didn't manipulate evidence from the shadows, he manipulated it from the top. Authority disguised as credibility, control disguised as procedure. We rounded the corner, and there he was. Kane stood at the far end of the corridor, half in shadow, half in light. Crisp suit, calm posture, expression unreadable. But his eyes, those hollow gray eyes, locked onto me with chilling precision. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. He simply tilted his head in acknowledgement, as if congratulating me for finally catching up. The officers paused, unaware why, sensing a presence they instinctively obeyed. Kane approached slowly, each step silent but deliberate. When he stopped in front of me, I noticed something on his sleeve, small orange fibers woven into the fabric. The same fibers found on the victim's hand, the same fibers he used as a signature. It was you, I whispered, voice cracking. All of it, you were the architect. He nodded slightly as though discussing a simple administrative task. You took longer than expected, but yes, you see it now. My voice trembled. Why frame me? I didn't frame you, Kane said gently. I positioned you. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Narratives require central figures. You were always meant to be mine. I'm not part of this, I hissed. Claire, he said softly, you already are. The moment you freed Ellis Ward, you stepped into my story. You challenged my system. You created conflict. His tone shifted, razor sharp, and every story needs conflict. I stared at him, hatred burning through fear. You killed innocent people to protect your system. Kane shrugged lightly. Innocence is a perspective. Evidence shapes perception, and perception creates truth. He leaned close enough that I could feel his breath. I don't manipulate justice, I maintain it. My heart pounded. You cloned DNA, you controlled cameras. You erased records. I curated outcomes, Kane corrected softly. I removed chaos. I ensured convictions when they were statistically appropriate. Then his eyes gleamed with something dark. And I removed anyone who threatened the narrative. Like Mara Holt's brother, I whispered. Kane didn't flinch. He discovered the pattern before it was complete. He was imperfect. He looked directly into my eyes. But you are not. I felt sick. You want me to help you. I want you to replace me, he replied, surprising me so violently I forgot to breathe. Every system needs a successor. My voice died in my throat. Why me? You understand story, he said calmly. You build cases like a novelist. You see motives, patterns, connections. You made the public believe Ellis Ward's innocence with nothing but a narrative. He smiled faintly. You are the only one who thinks like I do. I'll never become you. You already are, Kane replied. He tapped a finger lightly on my handcuffs. The moment the world believes you've lost your sanity, they will no longer trust your voice. And when your voice is gone, mine becomes the only one left. The officers resumed walking, pulling me forward. But Kane stopped them with a lifted finger, just a fraction of a gesture. They listened without question. That was the level of control he held. He walked backward into the dim hallway, each overhead camera going dark as he stepped beneath it. Claire, he said, his voice echoing softly, this is not the end of your story. It's the end of chapter 1. His final words drifted through the corridor like smoke. You are the protagonist, and protagonists rise from ruin. The courtroom doors opened. Cameras flashed. Reporters screamed. I stepped into the blinding light, cuffed, framed, but not broken. Somewhere behind me in the dark corridor, Kane watched, smiling faintly, waiting. Because he believed he had won. He believed the narrative belonged to him. But he was wrong, because I knew something he never accounted for. The main character survives the darkest chapter. In the next chapter, it's mine.